So if you've worked with Adobe Public Sector for any amount of time, you'll probably recognize one of these monkeys. If not, you're probably asking yourself, what does a monkey like this have to do with the government? And so I have three answers for that question. Number one, if you're familiar with Adobe's policies around giving gifts to its customers, including this picture from Adobe Max 2014, where we gave away Surface Pro 3s to the entire audience of 5,000 plus attendees, you might also know that right outside there was a sign during that giveaway that specifically noted that government, public health, and military employees were excluded from that giveaway. These monkeys cost about 10 bucks, if that. Number two, these monkeys are accessible for the sight impaired because they can hear the cry of the monkey coming a mile away. If you are hearing impaired, well, you can see the monkey flying at you, and it's very soft and tactile. And if you are motion impaired, you don't have to go get the monkey comes straight to you. If you are security concerned, which many of our government customers are, then you'll be happy to know that this monkey, even though it has a sound chip inside of it, does not connect to any computer via the USB protocol. And if for some reason you think that that is a joke, you should take a look at a Bloomberg article that came out in March of this year that reminds us that giving any gift to government employees that could potentially plug into one of their IT sources could result in the Army's Criminal Intelligence Division doing an investigation on you. Those are the three main reasons that these monkeys are a great gift at an Adobe event. But of course, if you're in the military, there's a fourth use. You can use them for target practice because after a while, their shriek gets so annoying that that's exactly what you feel like doing. This picture that you're looking at right here made me think while I was putting this presentation together about my candidacy as a principal solutions consultant at Adobe. And the picture that you're seeing is actually at the officers candidate school at the Marine Corps base in Quantico, Virginia, where they are in week 8 of their 12-week officer candidacy. I needed to build up my confidence since I'm a candidate. So I decided to look on Marines.com and see what their officer candidacy training looked like. So again, week 8 is firing week, where they use live rounds in their firearms. But of course I couldn't do that in preparation for this presentation. So I looked a little bit further along and I looked week 9, which was the confidence course. And the confidence course is a series of exercises on a real obstacle course where you deal with heights, where you deal with teamwork, where you deal with physical skills to build up your confidence. That's really what I needed to have confidence to go through with this presentation. So I looked at the video on that website and I saw this.
This is a physical training event!
Aye, sir!
You understand?
Yes, sir!
You're putting out maximum effort at all times!
Aye, sir!
Ah!
So if you see right there in the background of this video, there is this ladder called the Stairway to Heaven. And that's something that you have to climb in order to conquer your fear of heights, your fear of climbing. This apparatus, which you see this soldier is climbing up by himself, is called the Skyscraper. But I think probably my favorite is called the Dirty Word. And it's called the Dirty Word because as you can see, this soldier, you'll notice that he's jumping up.
Get out! Get out!
Right? Now, his feet kind of swung out. Now, if you jump right at the T formation of this bar and your feet swing out and straddle that bar, you will really hurt yourself. You will also likely say a dirty word, and that's why this piece of the course is called the Dirty Word. So I looked at the website, I looked at the video, and I tried to build up my confidence for this presentation, but it really was not enough. So what I decided to do was to go directly to the confidence course on the officer candidate school at the Marine Corps base at Quantico and do some of these obstacles myself to really build my confidence up. Hi there, I'm Jerry Silverman. I am currently a senior solutions consultant in the digital media group for Adobe Systems Federal. My past is, as you can see on my Behance profile, pretty focused on digital media. I've worked in the medium of photography, graphic design, illustration, ceremonial art, user interface, user experience design. I've been working in these media since high school, so it's a great thrill to work in those media for Adobe. And not only do I work in it, but I encourage my kids to leverage the latest technological tools tools such as Adobe Illustrator Draw and Adobe Photoshop Sketch to really get into that world of digital media. My professional background comes with an undergraduate from University of Florida and a Master's of Fine Arts from the School of Visual Arts in New York City. And prior to joining Adobe, I was a user experience, user interface designer and programmer for a number of clients in New York City, doing DVD, CD-ROM, websites, and interactive media. I was part of a 3-person team that did menu design, animation, illustration, and all of kind of the motion graphics and interactivity that you see in this example. But one of the things that I enjoyed most was creating multimedia that was live and that could be part of an interactive, in-person gaming experience. So the video that you see here was a Las Vegas-based sales training that was live and interactive that I produced for a pharmaceutical company, where 300 of their sales reps got together and trained on their recent product release, and they did so all within the gameplay of this interactive live presentation where they competed against each other to win points and win prizes. And so I executed that with a large team, some of whom actually got recruited over to Adobe on the Flash Media Server team in 2008, and I soon followed, having been part of that group that came over to Adobe. I originally came over via the Creative Pro team that was looking to have Macromedia-based expertise as part of the organization, but I quickly learned a lot of the other technology that Adobe had to offer and have kept those up to date up until the present day. Part of my job at Adobe is to travel around this great country of ours, and as you can see, I've been to many of the cities. I've been to places like Fort Huachuca, Arizona, where the OK Corral is located, or the USS Wisconsin in Norfolk, Virginia, to Space Camp, which is near Redstone Arsenal. But I'm not just vacationing and taking tourist photos. I'm actually speaking to our government customers in assemblies like the one that you see here. Sometimes our customers are so excited that they will put up posters along the hallways of their agencies to promote the sessions that we do. So this was done by MIT Lincoln Labs when I came to speak to them in 2012 about digital publishing. So I will present again in front of large government audiences, in front of specific customers, but also at trade shows and conferences. This graphic was produced by the Photoshop World Expo team in 2012 when that show came to Washington, D.C. On the show floor, I got to present in the Adobe booth. I support not only the government-specific trade shows, but also the commercial trade shows when they come through DC or Atlanta. So this is me at one of the Create Now commercial events, but I also support our large Adobe corporate events, such as Adobe Max. In 2013, I was honored to host the Adobe Advantage in the Public Sector session, and of course I recorded that session to be posted on Adobe TV. I was also part of the group that started the Adobe Government channel. There had been a number of different shows, but there was no one single channel. So I actually got into the Adobe TV team and created that channel and then started creating content specifically for that channel. And I'm also a frequent contributor to the Adobe blog for the public sector. One of the things that I do for our internal team is sales enablement for digital media and digital marketing on the landscape of our customer user community and how the products and services and features that we continuously ship are impacting their jobs and impacting their roles. So this takes me to my customer base, which is the military for the United States. And this picture is something that I saw at the Marine Corps Combat Camera, which made me feel right at home being a graphics person. One of the other signs that I saw at the Marine Corps base was this sign about leadership principles, and it actually gave me a great sense of pride in working with the military just to see these principles laid out. And I take these leadership principles through the work that I do as an SC with our customers. I will visit the actual users in the Combat Camera Signal Corps, Public Affairs, and other places where we have heavy user communities. And if I can't actually make it to their facility, then our teams will go out and meet them wherever they are, such as the GeoInt conference or the LAN Warnet conference. And if we don't make it out to the specific customer site or to the trade show, then we have a road show that goes across the country where we can meet them on neutral ground and spread the good word. And my success is evidenced by this assortment of trophies, most of which I have won being a Digital Media SC for government. There's one missing from this photo, but we're going to get to that trophy in due time. The customer who I'd like to focus on today is Defense Media Activity. They are a consolidated group that puts together public affairs, combat camera, visual information specialty from all of the branches of DoD into one agency that's thought of as the publishing hub and the broadcast hub for the entire Defense Department, the Condé Nast of the Defense Department. The properties that they own and that they publish out include these, but are not limited to the magazines, Soldiers Radio and Television, multimedia for all 4 branches, as well as the Defense Information School, which does the training for public affairs and visual information specialists. The story that I'd like to tell about DMA starts in the spring of 2011 when we visited their Fort Meade offices. We delivered to them a 2-pronged presentation. We showed them their own Adobe licensing scheme over the past years. But then, of course, we had to build the value of our software. My part of the presentation to them was around the value of the Adobe digital media tools to create rich interactive applications, to create HTML5 browser content, to create digital magazines. Also, how Creative Suite at that time was deployable behind their secure firewall. Around that time, Defense Secretary Gates issued an order that DMA's $4 million print budget was, by the end of 2011, going to completely vanish. So it was kind of opportune timing for Adobe to be engaging with Defense Media Activity when many of their original properties, like Marines Magazine or Soldiers Magazine, were traditionally print-based publications. We engaged with Lieutenant Colonel Greg Reeder, editor-in-chief of the Marine Corps magazine. He decided to start investigating our digital publishing suite and worked with an outside agency, Bates Creative Group, who's pictured here, to work on a version of their magazine. This is a photo of myself down in Quantico working on this issue of the magazine. As you can see, there's a soldier pictured here, which is actually a 360-degree panorama view of the soldier that when you swipe your finger back and forth, you can see the soldier spinning around and show off the flak jacket that he's wearing. What I like about this picture is that 360-degree panorama of the soldier that's pictured there is actually this soldier who's pictured in the picture, so it's a little bit meta. It was a great honor to be asked to work alongside them to help develop the first iteration of their magazine, and the result got a lot of coverage in not only the government press and the government media, but also in the mainstream digital publishing market. Adobe did a customer case study video on Adobe TV. They called it the Guts to Go Digital because at that time there were no government agencies investing in managed services at all. But as I said, it wasn't just government agencies that got excited about this. The photo that you see here was shot for Folio magazine, which was a digital publishing trade publication that highlighted their use case. And the result was a significant add-on to the existing enterprise licensing agreement. So instead of a $1.3 million ELA, it actually turned out to be a $1.6 million ELA. One of the things that you saw in Matt Thompson's customer spotlight was something that you don't usually see a lot of, which was a real ROI statement. $4 million savings annually in printing costs. And we invited Lieutenant Colonel Reeder to speak at our sales kickoff. A few months later, he came to the Adobe Government Assembly and gave a presentation of his entire workflow and the Site Catalyst dashboard that he saw. He was really a great advocate of Adobe inside of the government space. And to this day, he's helping customers realize the value that Adobe brings to their IT environment. Once we had finished the Marines Magazine case case study, we needed new assets for the launch of Creative Suite 6. So we asked Lieutenant Colonel Reeder and Debbie from Bates Creative to help us create demo assets. They did a great job putting together not only the demo assets, but help crafting the story around how CS6 would help to be more efficient, be more creative, and be more productive. They were the first real demo assets that we assembled for a government audience, and we launched them at our CS6 launch event in the Navy Memorial Auditorium in Washington, D.C. But of course, to this day, this is a photo from June 2014, and solutions consultant Nissan Dax presenting the Marines magazine in a DPS presentation. We get a lot of mileage out of that partnership and out of that case study. Meanwhile, at the Defense Information School, another kind of transformation has been happening in terms of moving away from their Avid video editorial workflow and moving towards Adobe Premiere Pro. This photo that you see here is a keyboard shortcut map that they have laid out on the wall of their video editing classroom. So it's been a great ride at Defense Media Activity since 2011, but of course Adobe has not stood still at all during that time. And between 2011 and 2013, we made a bunch of significant changes to our desktop and digital media offerings, such as only offering them via subscription. So we kind of expected the response from many of our customers to be kind of lukewarm, but how it really wound up being was something like this. Of course, Defense Media Activity had one of these types of reactions, and it took months and months of continuous speaking to them to talk them down off the ledge and get them interested to even come back to the table. And so we offered to bring them out to our customer briefing center in San Jose and to give them the entire Adobe Advantage message from start to finish. So we brought out great executives, talked about the changes in the creative licensing models, we talked about the Creative Cloud roadmap, we discussed integrations between the Creative Cloud and the Marketing Cloud and how they could host behind their firewall instances of an asset repository that could connect directly with the creative tools. And finally, we discussed the wonderful deployment workflow, and they also wanted to know about Adobe Anywhere and Adobe Primetime for delivery of content with digital rights management on mobile devices. And they wanted to see the whole big picture. What we did invite them to was this presentation in the center of DC. We put on an all-day video editing, motion graphics, and production workshop around the release of the Act of Valor movie, where a film crew got embedded with a real unit of Navy SEALs, and we invited the producers, the director, and the cinematographer all together to speak about making the film. We had some instructors come in and instruct on best practices. So we invited DMA and they were given the VIP treatment. And so with the Customer Briefing Center presentation and months of preparation for that, and also the real value sell of the Creative Cloud tools and technology, that was eventually enough to bring DMA around in September of 2013 to sign an ETLA, term license agreement. That was a really great win for us. So we went from a $1.6 million ELA in September of 2011 to a $2.3 million ETLA in September of 2013. So this is a photo, by the way, of myself navigating the dirty word on the Officers Candidate School course. But we're not sure right now what that tall bar is going to be. When we did that $2.3 million ETLA, we knew that it had a lot of visibility across the Defense Department and across a lot of our customer base, but we didn't know what the next bar would be. The relationship with the Defense Media Activity continued, and this is a photo in early 2014 of the CIO and Director of Public Web and Director of Infrastructure visiting the CNN World News headquarters in Atlanta to discuss their deployment of Adobe Anywhere and their trial deployment of Adobe Primetime. Again, Anywhere is the technology that allows video editors out in the field to edit high-resolution footage that might not be located in their immediate proximities. And then Primetime is the technology that allows CNN and Turner and many of the other broadcasters to broadcast their content out to mobile devices with digital rights management. And we took the opportunity during that meeting to go back over some of the topics that we covered during the CBC. And so some of the things that we covered with them was how to take their current workflow in photography, graphics, websites, and digital publishing out to the next level. And we took 3 user scenarios and we mapped the use cases against the Adobe integrated technology stack. And we really just walked them through the art of the possible with how their publishers and content owners could submit content alongside their photographers and retouchers to publish responsive websites that could be analyzed and contain targeted content. So not only did we walk them through the flowchart, but we also showed them examples of how to take assets from one repository, move them over to another, use them in a website that could then be scaled down for responsive design. We showed them how the basics of analytics and personalization of content actually works inside of AEM, and showed them the basic analytics that we collect there. And we also showed them how assets that came into AEM could then be repurposed using Adobe Drive and the integrations between the desktop tools and the asset repository. We showed them some bleeding edge technology around task management and how manuscripts and task management inside of AEM could be surfaced within the desktop applications, where content could be checked in, checked out, a version queue could be maintained, metadata could be maintained against those assets. And of course, the entire presentation that we gave them was couched in demo to win framework. So we told them what we were going to show them, we showed them, and then we told them what we showed them. And so here we were poised upon this $2.3 million ETLA with them, but we really didn't know what the next step was going to be. So as this balancing act was happening, something other and much larger was happening inside of Adobe's defense sales team, and that was the creation of a $43 million joint enterprise license agreement with the Army, the Air Force, and Defense Information Services. One might think when you have this huge deal come across the line that you feel, all right, I'm at the top, I'm happy, I've finally reached it, but the way that you actually wind up feeling is kind of like you've jumped off the skyscraper. If you were wondering, that is a look of terror on my face, because yes, it's great to do a huge deal, but we knew it would be a big job. One of the things that we started with was helping our account reps create the resources for our resellers, for CDWG and for Carahsoft, to get them up to speed with what all of the products actually were, what they weren't, what was included in the bundles, what wasn't included, how they were structured, how they could be deployed, where the resources and documentation were located for all of these, and help them get their portals ready for all of the inquiries that would come through. Another one of the things that we've constantly been working on is developing documentation for our military customers that doesn't exist anywhere else. So this matrix that you see here is basically a spreadsheet of every application that's inside of the Creative Cloud that they can deploy on their network, the sizes of the 64-bit installers, what's included with those installers, how large the patches for those installers are, whether or not a 32-bit version is available. If it is, how large that installer is, and what's included with the 32-bit installer, how large the 32-bit patch sizes are, whether or not they are included or whether they have to be deployed via exception process, which is a whole other story, and then all of the notes about all of these installers. So this information exists in about 12 different places at Adobe, and we had to consolidate all of it together for our Army customer, and it's been a good resource not only for DoD but for tech support internally as well. And of course we had to work with the certification authorities in the military to get the Army Con, the Navy and Marine Corps DATMs, and the Air Force AFNIC certifications. And I had to work with our account reps and with our partners and with those certification offices, and then to document how the deployment process would work for offline and secure machines in the military, not only for end users but also for the IT personnel. And I update that resource on a quarterly basis because our technology continues to change and evolve on a quarterly basis. And it's not enough to help the partners understand our offering. We also have to publicize the Joint Enterprise License Agreement so that customers will know that it's there. They will see the value in getting getting the software so that they will make the choice to ask for it. Our roadshow and our webinar series was targeted this year at doing exactly that for the Joint Enterprise License Agreement. One of the great parts of getting out there and meeting the customers is finding the really engaging and amazing case studies that they bring to bear. Our customers do really incredible stuff. And so one of the customers that we met in 2013 was the Naval Undersea Warfare Center and their multimedia lab that they have in Newport, Rhode Island. And they're doing responsive web design, they're doing really bleeding edge motion graphics, they're doing digital publishing. So it's a real creative use case. In early 2014, visited again to Newport, Rhode Island, to their production studios that they have, and met with David Bellino, who is the executive producer, and we produced this great customer success story and also a PDF that goes through not only their reason for investing in the Creative Cloud, but also the security considerations that they had as a government and a military organization, and how the Creative Cloud deployment model was actually good. So in the video case study, which you can find on Adobe TV, their production studio has a huge Sony 4K projector where they can bring up any tool and work on any piece of content in very high resolution that they can broadcast simultaneously to Navy sites all across the world. And we've also met with other customers like Nathan Holer from the U.S. Army Morale, Welfare, and Recreation. We learned about his usage of PhoneGap Build to build the Army Family Team Building application. So we continue learning about new customer case studies and successes all across the military because of our close touch that we keep with that customer base. The success that we've had over the last few years has definitely been great, but none greater than that last trophy over there on the right-hand side, the DoD Jella Trophy, which, as you see, towers over the rest of them. It's been a really great ride. Instead of jumping off the skyscraper and feeling scared and intimidated, this is really how I feel like we're exiting the year. We're actually doing really great. And the only thing that could make me more fulfilled as part of this team would be to go to the emblem ceremony at week 12 of my officer candidacy and go from being a candidate to an officer. So thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this presentation. And just FYI, if you'd like to download the fixed layout animated EPUB presentation, you can use this QR code to download it. You can go to this URL here. And just a note, this is a fixed layout EPUB. It's not a PDF, it's not a PowerPoint, and it was created completely using Adobe InDesign CC 2014, the October release. So it was done using state-of-the-art technology. Also, the QR code was generated with InDesign. But I want to say thank you for your attention, and I hope I get accepted as a Principal SE.